Rain hammered the car windows as Ethan glanced at his daughter, Sophie, in the back seat. Suddenly, she murmured, "Dad, I feel like I know this place. Like I've been here before." Before he could answer, the diner waitress approached a woman with auburn hair and weary eyes. Sophie looked up at her and blurted, "Are you my mom?" The waitress stiffened, her face paling as if Sophie's words had hit a raw nerve. Ethan stared, stunned. What the hell is going on? The storm battered the tinted windows of Ethan Sullivan's sleek black Bentley as it pulled into the parking lot of Dawson's Diner. Neon lights flickered through the downpour, casting jagged reflections across the worn asphalt. Inside, silence pressed down, broken only by the engine's low hum and the soft tapping of Sophie's pencil against her sketchbook. Ethan caught his 9-year-old daughter's reflection in the rearview mirror, her small face lit by the dashboard glow, her brow furrowed as she drew. He couldn't say why he'd brought her here tonight, to this weathered diner far from their polished Manhattan penthouse. Maybe it was burnout from relentless boardroom fights. Maybe it was the 3rd anniversary of Nora's death weighing on him like a brick. "Ready, kiddo?" he asked, forcing a smile that didn't touch his eyes. Sophie nodded, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. She'd barely spoken since Nora's car crashed 3 years ago, but her vivid, colorful drawings spoke volumes Ethan couldn't quite decode. He stepped into the rain, umbrella in hand, and led her to the diner's chipped blue door. The interior hit them with a rush of nostalgia grease, coffee, a hint of burnt toast. Dawson's was a relic, checkered floors, cracked vinyl booths, a jukebox crooning a somber Sinatra tune. A handful of late-night regulars hunched over their plates, unaware of the billionaire and his daughter sliding into a corner booth. Ethan loosened his tie, his tailored suit glaringly out of place, while Sophie's curious eyes scanned the room, soaking in every detail. The waitress approached tall, worn, auburn hair pulled into a messy bun. Her name tag read Maggie. She offered a faint smile, sliding menus onto the table. "Welcome to Dawson's. What can I get you started with?" "Pancakes," Sophie piped up before Ethan could speak, her voice bright, but laced with something he couldn't place. "Extra syrup." Maggie's smile warmed, a spark cutting through her exhaustion. "Good pick. Anything for you, sir." "Coffee black," Ethan said, clipped. He wasn't here to chat. But Sophie wasn't done. She leaned forward, her sketchbook slipping onto the table, and locked eyes with Maggie in a way that twisted Ethan's stomach. "Are you my mom?" The question sliced through the air like a thunderclap. Ethan froze, coffee cup halfway to his lips. Maggie's pen hit the floor, her face draining of color, as if she'd seen a phantom. The diner's background noise faded, leaving only the echo of Sophie's words. "Sophie," Ethan snapped, voice low and firm. "That's enough." But Maggie didn't move. Her hazel eyes wide, haunted fixed on Sophie, then flicked to Ethan. "To need to check something," she stammered, bolting behind the counter like a startled animal. Ethan's mind reeled. What just happened? Sophie's question was wild, a kid's imagination running loose, but Maggie's reaction wasn't. He glanced at his daughter, who'd gone back to sketching as if nothing had happened. "Why'd you say that?" he asked, keeping his tone even. Sophie shrugged, her pencil scratching the page. "She looks like the lady in my dreams." "Dreams?" Ethan rubbed his temples, blaming it on grief, Sophie's way of coping with Nora's loss. But a sliver of doubt crept in. Who was Maggie? The next day, the rain had lifted, but a tempest brewed in Ethan's chest as he returned to Dawson's alone. Sophie was home with a nanny, her sketchbook now filled with fresh drawings he couldn't bear to study. He needed answers. Maggie was wiping tables with robotic focus when she saw him. She flinched but held her ground. "You're back," she whispered. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, stepping closer. "And why did my daughter's question rattle you?" Maggie's hand shook as she set her rag down. "I didn't mean Toy knew Nora, your wife." The name hit him like a punch. "Ow! We were friends close, like sisters before she met you." Maggie's gaze dropped. "She helped me through a rough patch. I was pregnant, alone. The father was rich, powerful. He ditched me when I needed him most." Ethan's jaw clenched. What's this got to do with Sophie? Maggie's breath caught. "Nora promised me something. If anything happened to me, she'd look after my daughter. And if anything happened to her," she looked up, tears brimming. "Sophie's mine, Ethan. Biologically. Nora took her in when I couldn't. I was a mess, ashamed, broken. She raised her as her own." The truth crashed over him. Sophie wasn't his and Nora's. His knees buckled, but he braced himself against a booth. "You're lying," he snarled. Nora would have told me. She didn't want you to know, Maggie said, voice cracking. She loved you, wanted you to have a family. After I gave Sophie up, I disappeared. Then Nora died, and two didn't know how to come back. Ethan's vision blurred with rage and sorrow. Who's the father? Maggie swallowed. David Brooks. The name stabbed him. David, his best friend, his business partner, the guy who'd cried with him at Nora's funeral. Betrayal ignited, a blaze he couldn't douse. That night, Ethan stormed into David's penthouse, the Manhattan skyline glinting coldly beyond the glass. David lounged on a leather couch, scotch in hand, but his casual grin faded when he saw Ethan's face. You bastard, Ethan spat, slamming the door. Sophie's yours. David set his glass down with slow precision. So Maggie talked. You abandoned her, your own kid. Ethan's fist balled, itching to swing. It wasn't like that, David said, standing. I was young, dumb, didn't want the burden. Nora offered to take her, and I let her. I thought it was over. Over. Ethan laughed, a harsh, broken sound. You lied to me for years. Watched me raise her, knowing. There's more. David cut in, his voice low and sharp. Nora didn't tell you everything about Sophie, about me. There's something you don't know. Ethan lunged, grabbing David's collar. What the hell does that mean? David's eyes flashed fear, regret, defiance. Ask Maggie. She's got the rest. I'm done here. Ethan shoved him back, chest heaving. Stay away from us. You're dead to me. But as he left, David's vague warning gnawed at him. What else was there? What had Nora kept from him? Back home, Ethan sat in the dark, Nora's old jewelry box open on his lap. Under the velvet lining, he found a sealed letter in her handwriting. His hands trembled as he tore it open, her words swimming through tears. Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Sophie's not ours not by blood, but she's ours by love. Maggie's her mother, David's her father. I took her to protect her. There's more, something dangerous. If David ever comes back, don't trust him. He's not what he seems. The letter fell from his hands. Dangerous? What had Nora dragged him into? Why hadn't she trusted him? The next morning, Ethan brought Sophie back to Dawson's. Maggie waited, pale but steady. I found Nora's letter, he said, voice raw. What's the danger she mentioned? Maggie's eyes widened. David's not just a coward. He's mixed up in something bigger, money laundering, shady deals. Nora found out when we were friends. She threatened to expose him unless he let me go. That's why he vanished. But if he knows I'm back, he knows, Ethan said grimly. I confronted him. Maggie's hand flew to her mouth. Then Sophie's not safe. A chill gripped him. He glanced at Sophie, sketching quietly in the booth, unaware of the storm brewing. Her latest drawing caught his eye. Of family. Him, Maggie, and a faceless woman who might have been Nora or someone else. Days later, a private investigator Ethan hired dug deeper. David had been funneling cash through a shell company linked to Nora's old nonprofit. She hadn't just taken Sophie to protect her, she'd been guarding Maggie from David's fury, using his secrets as leverage. But the PI warned David was on the move and not alone. Ethan couldn't keep running. He tracked David to an abandoned warehouse on the city's edge, the air thick with rust and damp concrete. He gripped a goon, a precaution he dreaded. David stood in the shadows, flanked by two hired goons, his sneer cutting through the dimness. What's your endgame? Ethan demanded. David laughed, cold and empty. You think this is just about Sophie? Nora was in too deep. She took what was mine of me, daughter, my leverage. You're my way now. The fight exploded, brutal, messy. Ethan took a punch to the jaw, a kick to the ribs, but fought back with betrayal-fueled rage. One thug went down, skull cracked. The other ran. David slipped into the night, leaving Ethan battered but breathing. The danger lingered, but he bought time. Weeks later, things calmed her, so Ethan hoped. He'd hired security for the penthouse, set up cameras, kept Sophie close. Maggie moved in temporarily, bunking in the guest room, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of their fractured past. The three returned to Dawson's one rainy evening, the patter on the windows now a soft murmur, not a roar. Pancakes steamed on the table, syrup pooling around Sophie's plate as she giggled at Maggie's awful knock-knock joke. Ethan watched, his heart heavy yet lifting with faint hope. David was still out there, a shadow with his secrets, but the PI had traced him to a jet bound for Zurich. Maybe he'd fled for good. Maybe not. Ethan didn't care, not tonight. Sophie slid her latest drawing across the table. Three figures holding hands under a bright sun, him, Maggie, and herself, faces clear, no mysteries. Looks like us, he said, voice thick. Yeah, Sophie whispered, eyes gleaming. It does. But the story wasn't over. The next morning, an envelope Aravedno sent her, just a typed note and a grainy photo. The note read, Nora knew too much. So do you? Drop it or Sophie pays. The photo showed Nora meeting a man in a dark alley years ago, not David, but someone older, sharper, with a scar across his cheek. Ethan's stomach sank. The PI identified him, Victor Langston, a reclusive financier tied to organized crime, David's boss, maybe Nora's true threat. Ethan called the PI. Dig deeper. I need everything on Langston. Maggie overheard, her face ashen. Victor? Nora mentioned him once, said he was dangerous, untouchable. She was terrified he'd find out about Sophie. Why? Ethan pressed. She wouldn't say just that he had a claim, something she took from him. Ethan's mind raced. A claim leverage. Had Nora taken more than Sophie from David, something Langston prized? He rummaged through Nora's old files, finding a hidden USB taped inside a book. It held encrypted records, financials, coded names, transactions tying Langston to David's shell company. Nora hadn't just threatened David's been building a case to topple Langston's empire. She died before she could act. Ethan didn't wait for Langston to strike. With the PI's help, he leaked the files to the FBI anonymously, tipping off a reporter friend for good measure. Days later, news broke. Langston arrested, David named a fugitive accomplice. The danger wasn't dead men like Langston had reach, even from jail, but it was hobbled. That night, Ethan sat Sophie down, Maggie beside him. Kiddo, he began, there's something you need to know about your mom, Nora, and Maggie. Sophie's pencil stopped. I know, she said softly. Maggie's my real mom, but you're my real dad. Nora picked you for me. Ethan's throat closed. How'd you figure that out? Your eyes, she said, tapping her sketchbook. They're sad like mine, but they love me anyway. Maggie took Sophie's hand, tears falling. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Nora gave you what I couldn't. Sophie hugged her. Then Ethan, her fierce grip piecing their shattered lives together. We're a team now, right? Right, Ethan said, voice steady at last. Months later, spring arrived, sunlight pouring through the penthouse windows. David was nabbed in Prague, extradited for trial. Langston's empire collapsed, his lieutenants scattering. The threats faded into routine. Sophie's school plays, Maggie's new gig in art gallery, Ethan cutting back work to be home. One Sunday, they returned to Dawson's. The diner hadn't changed, greasy, warm, timeless. Sophie ordered pancakes, extra syrup, and sketched a new scene. The three of them on a hill, a rainbow overhead, no shadows in her lines. Ethan sipped his coffee, watching Maggie tease Sophie about her sticky fingers. This wasn't the family he'd envisioned, with Nora imperfect, complicated, but it was real, forged through secrets, loss, and hard-earned trust. This is us, Sophie said, holding up her drawing. Yeah, Ethan agreed, smiling fully now. This is us. And it was enough.